Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, it's just really, for us, all of us here, all of us as human beings, all of us on this glorious planet, it's an interesting time, although in some ways, in all ways, it's always an interesting time. But now it seems that there's an extraordinary opportunity for all of us to really come together and come together for a reason to save ourselves and to save this planet and to save a dignity and to save a joy and to save a glory and to save a recognition that is almost in danger of being lost, a recognition of our love, of our connectedness, of our oneness, of our one Father, of our one Creator, of our one Goddess, of our one oneness, of our connectedness, of our hunger to know love, our hunger to share love and to feel love and share it, of our hunger to express that love and to manifest that love through all the creative ways that we can as a human species on this planet, to love the earth and the mountains and the dolphins and the whales and the fish and the trees and it's our time to do that. And in certain ways we're running out of human time. That this planet is coming to a point where if humans don't recognize their destiny and their history and their true being, that the time is running out for us to come together, to collaborate, to be the healing agent, to heal the heart of this planet, to heal the root, to heal the disharmony. And it's just so time and it's so necessary and it's so in every one of our best interests to have that prayer in our heart, to have that recognition in our being, to have that knowing as the guiding force in our lives, the knowing of our connection, the knowing of our oneness, the knowing of the root of this life, that love is the root, that love is the question and love is the answer. And how do we do that? How do we as a species from all the seemingly separate countries and seemingly separate religions and seemingly separate colors and sexual preferences and heights and weights and ball teams and all the ways that we seem to be separate. How can we do that? We can get to the root, we can go home. And in the home of our hearts, we realize we're all one. There is one energy, there is one root, there is one vibration that is the mother of all, the father of all, the root of all, the heart of all, the one of all. And throughout history, we know there have been enormously gifted teachers and healers of from all different parts of this world. And each one of them comes and says, we are all one. We can all know that as a species, as individuals, and we could take responsibility and take the realization of that knowing into this earthly existence and create a Garden of Eden, to return to have a new age where love is the root, where love is the motivating force, where collaboration and creativity and cooperation is the motivating force. We can't exist in any other way. That love is the guiding motion for everything, that we're basically love in motion. And in our hearts we absolutely know that that's what we want, that that's why we are in a human body at this time. There is no other reason. And the people who aren't remembering that or aren't recognizing that are starting to leave this planet. Because this time is for that healing and that recognition and that knowing. And so as individuals and groups and people and the people who are watching this show and everybody on this planet, it's our time. It's our time to love. It's our time to collaborate. It's our time to be creative together. And let's take that time and that opportunity and that realization and that knowing, and let's make it real and realer and more realized and more manifested. It's our obligation, it's our duty, it's our joy, it's our love, it's our passion, it's our destiny. And together we can. Not just in one country, not just in one region, not just of one religious order or other. As a species on this planet, we could recognize that we're all brothers and sisters and we're all here to serve that one, that love, each other. And then what we do on this planet will be different. How we walk this planet, how we manifest on this planet, how goods and services and assets are distributed on this planet will change by that root. Nothing is going to change until each of us takes responsibility to recognize that root, that heart, that love of which we are made, of which there is nothing outside of that. So let's come together, let's do it. Let's reach out more. If people aren't having that experience, then pray to have that experience. If people are having that experience, pray to have more of it. And do whatever you've been doing. Do it more. Be in that state of, I need to, I want to. My endless joy and fulfillment comes from a recognition of that endless love, of that unconditional love of God. And together we can. I know this show reaches all over the world. I know this show reaches on television stations, on satellites, through the internet, all over the world. And together we can. And each breath we take in that recognition, each breath we take in that prayer is the most joyous for us, the most fulfilling, the most real. And that's really what we want, is to feel love and share it. So again, tonight's guest is dedicated in his particular way, and his spoke on the wheel. to bringing that realization, to feeling that realization, to knowing that realization, and then sharing that vibration, that gift with the world. Steffan Vanel is a internationally renowned guide and counselor. He works with a unique style and synthesis of astrology, the tarot, the Kabbalah, psychology. He's the author of an extraordinary new book, Astrological Karma of the United States. And he has extraordinary amounts to say about the current times and our movement into that experience of unity and oneness through the stars, through the tarot, through the Kabbalah. And as most of you know, we usually show extraordinary music videos and videos of all kinds. And tonight we have an art music video by George Graves, and we also have a beautiful music flute video by David Young. And also, as most of you know, we're in the midst of this really just gifted, blessed art project that came as a dream, it came as a vision for us to reach out to the world and say anybody who wants to, any style, any format, any age, any different acrylic, oil, glass, any format, any style, any age, no requirements, to create a new original piece based on the theme Bridging Heaven and Earth. And we've received probably 200 or so pieces from all over the world, just powerful and inspiring and uplifting and just so different, but so powerful and so beautiful. And tonight we're going to show two more, one by Carolyn Robinson and one by Susan Prout. One is from Kent, England, and one is from Kansas City, Missouri. And we've received pieces over the last couple of weeks from Germany and Finland and right outside of Santa Barbara, Ventura, California. Someone drove up an extraordinary piece today. So, I mean, again, everybody is welcome. It's infinite. It's an inclusive project. Anybody is welcome to join us. It came as a recognition that this creativity from all over the world with that intention of bridging heaven and earth and manifesting is a healing of the heart of the planet, a healing of the root, and something that could be used as almost as an acupuncture for the planet. So anybody who's moved to share with us and get your peace out all over the world, that is our intention as well. So please join us with that. And actually, let me read what Carolyn wrote about her piece, The Angel's Healing Flame. And I think you won't see it right now, but you will see it. The editors will show it as I'm reading this. Visualize this flame in your hand. See it growing with every breath you inhale and exhale until the flame expands enough to immerse you, your house, your town, your country, and the whole earth, so that the beautiful flame, a gift from the angels, can repair the earth and bring love back to us all. And a lot of the pieces that come in with poetry and people talking about the extraordinary experiences they have doing the piece and collaborating and be part of this international healing art project. So anybody who wants to join us, please do. So now join me in a short meditation, then we'll have a beautiful video, and then Steffan will be with us, and it's an opportunity, and let's take it, and let's take it now, and let's really mean it. Okay? All right, so join me in a short meditation. Hi, everybody. That felt good. I hope it felt good for you as well. Okay, the first video is done by a real old friend of bridging who does a lot of the technical stuff. He's a technical wizard. This person, George Graves, it's an art music video of pieces that have come in from the art project, and he's, just rotated them through and, faded in and faded out. And it's with the music, The Question, the Leslie of Bridging Heaven and Earth video, music video, and Leslie and I wrote the music and the words, and it's from the Leslie of Bridging Heaven and Earth CD. It's beautiful, The Question. So George Graves, art music video, The Question. Enjoy.
We can try too hard when it's easy. We can want too much we don't really need. We can save our laughter for tomorrow. We can trap ourselves when we're so very free. Here's the question. Life is the journey. God is the answer. We can hold on tight to one illusion. We can wish we might never dare. Make ourselves so damn important. We can hide our hearts, pretend we don't care. God is the question. Life is the journey. Love is the answer. Tomorrow we learn it. We can hold ourselves above each other. We can strive to win at any cost. We can play a part to please another. We can search for meaning till we're lost. Love is a question. Life is a journey. Love is the answer. Tomorrow we'll learn. We can choose to fight or choose to listen. We can give or grasp. It's always our call. We can bless each moment we are given. 'Cause the truth is that we have it all. Love is the question. Love is a question. Life is
Hi, everybody. Well, welcome back. That was a beautiful video of all that incredible art from all over the world. And George put it together, and there was the Lessie of Bridging Heaven, from the Lessie of Bridging Heaven and Earth CD, The Question. And also, you're seeing this art piece that came in from England, this beautiful piece, Carolyn Robinson. It's called The Angel's Healing Flame. It's oil and acrylic on a box canvas. And this was the poem or the information I read earlier about the healing flame of this particular piece, and is also part of the art project. And again, anybody who wants to be part of the art project, it's infinite, it's inclusive, it's ongoing, and anybody whose energy really is enlivened by doing it, we'd love to have you part of it. So welcome, Steffan.
Thank you, Alan.
It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Yeah, it's been a long time we've been talking about,
it's been
doing
a
a
while,
show.
yeah.
That's great. So when I had the opening, I said that you use a synthesis of the Kabbalah and tarot and psychology and astrology. Why don't you talk about how that came to be and how it manifests through you?
Well, my own path, I started with the tarot, but I work with a deck that teaches how the key to the deeper wisdom of the tarot is the relationship between the tarot and the tree of life from the Kabbalah. But there's a lot of astrological correspondences to the tarot cards and the positions on the tree of life and so on. And then later I started doing astrology as well. And my best work is where I combine astrology with tarot. To me, astrology shows what are the lessons your soul agreed to work on and grow through in this lifetime, and you can look at the transits and progressions that shows what's hitting you now. But with astrology by itself, you can't see what you're doing with it or what growth you've reached, having worked on those things for these many years already. And that's what I can see in the tarot. But I do this very psychological tree of life, Kabbalistic reading. It's kind of like the chart is the curriculum you signed up for in this life, the transits are your current exams, and the reading is your report cards. So that's sort of the way I do it in that sort of integrated fashion.
And you do it individually, you do it for nations, you do it for like the earth as a whole. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, what really launched me into that kind of work was due to the fact that I had a lecture set up in Eugene, Oregon for the evening of September 12th, 2001.
After September 11th.
The night after.
9/11.
Yeah, I've been set up weeks ahead of time. And so I had to change my topic, and that's when I decided to look at the astrology chart of the United States, which I had never really seen before because I'm usually sorting out people and not countries, but on that night I had to see what is going on. And I was pretty amazed to see what I could see right away. Now I also did do a tarot reading for the United States that night at that lecture, and that was quite interesting.
Actually, that lecture's available on the internet now, right?
Not the original lecture, a recent
later.
lecture from last December.
But it was in Eugene, Oregon as well.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's what stimulated the book. Now, the tarot reading is actually one of the chapters in the book. The cards that came up in that reading and so on.
And so, as we did a show 9/14 that same year.
Right.
And, what we were saying, it was Carlos Reynosa was the guest, and he did some singing, and, we did some talking. Was that, in essence, our job is always the same. Whether it was 9/10, 9/11, 9/12, 2000, 1990, 2001, is to put out that energy of love, of inclusion, of the infinite, over and over and over it, unrelentingly, and just keep building that energy. Why don't you talk about what your messages were, on 9/12?
Well, that whole summer, there was an intense astrological configuration going on. And I was telling my clients that I feel like something's going to happen. Now, it had nothing to do with the US chart, because I hadn't really looked at that until September 12th. But there was a opposition going on between the planet Saturn and the planet Pluto. And I was aware of it as it was falling in all of my clients' charts, but I knew on this collective level that at some point this Saturn kind of status quo, material structure, duty, authority, was going to give to some kind of Plutonian intense transformative energy. Now, what I didn't know until September 12th, that Pluto-Saturn tension was right on top of the ascendant and top of the self-image of the United States. See, the United States is born July 4th, so we have the sun in Cancer. And that's our true potential, to be this caring, nurturing, mothering being, breadbasket to the world, the best symbol of which to me is the Statue of Liberty. The female goddess at the edge of the sea with a poem that says, "Send me your poor huddled masses to these shores to create a new life." And that's total Cancer, caring, nurturing, mothering energy. But our self-image, the way we see ourselves, is Sagittarius, which has positive qualities.
Us meaning the United States.
United States, yeah, the being, the group soul of the United States. And Sagittarius rising has positive qualities. It gives a love of adventure and travel, and that's why Americans created cars and planes and landed on the moon. And it creates a youthful optimism and enthusiasm, that American can-do spirit. But according to, the Master Hilarion, which is a source where I have been studying information that was channeled through a medium, which I might explain a little more later, but he says Sagittarius rising also gives a self-image of oneself as being honest, upright, and morally strong, whether true or not.
So there could be some delusion in the self-image of,
yeah.
I'm righteous, and
We're always the good guys.
How do you figure? Is the question.
Yeah. I mean,
under what theory?
we always have the white hats, It's like, and at times we really are honest and morally righteous. But even when we're not, we think we are.
Would you say that's a dichotomy or a discrepancy in that group culture? Because the intention and the root is to be healing and to be nurturing, and yet.
See, Hilarion says a lot of people's challenge, as opposed to some schools of astrology, is to get back in touch with your sun sign. Because that's who you really are, that's your soul essence, that's the biggest thing in the sky. But other factors in the chart can sort of take you away from that and obscure it. For example, the rising sign is your self-image. The midheaven, what was straight up when you're born, that's the way you present yourself to the world. The moon is the influence of your childhood reflected onto you. My opening line on a chart is always the same. I use my own chart as an example. I would say to myself, you are a Libra, you think you're a Scorpio, you pretend you're a Virgo, and in your childhood you had to be a Cancer. That's my sun, rising, midheaven, and moon. So the United States' challenge is to get back in touch with that Cancer, caring, nurturing, mothering energy. And there's various factors in the chart that challenge us in our ability to do this, but it's potentially there.
And would you say in your work, play, in your investigation that there's a collective Earth, all the, the human species and all the other species, group destiny, group energy as well? So as we expand out. Of course,
absolutely.
Okay, so why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we can also say, that the whole world was also experiencing this Pluto-Saturn opposition, even though it was keyed in particularly into the chart of the United States, but it's how the whole world was experiencing that tension. But, I work with this information channeled from the Ascended Master Hilarion through a medium in Ontario who uses the name Maurice Cook. And he says one of the most profound things I've ever learned about what's going on this planet, in regards to your question. He says that the other galactic races in the galaxy refer to this planet as Oceania, because virtually nowhere in the galaxy is there a planet with this much water. Other planets that have water on it at all, it's like a pond with a fence around it. You have to look at it from the outside. And it's because of the unique experiment in evolution that's taking place on this planet. He says there's three facets to the Godhead: physical, mental, and emotional. Most of the other galactic races, which are generally way more evolved than us, are evolving along the mental ray. And they have learned how to live in peace with each other because they mentally understand the karmic law. As you sow, so shall you reap. Whereas we have been given the much more difficult challenge of evolving along the emotional ray. But that is why there is so much water here, why our bodies are, 98% water. It's to create this emotional atmosphere. And the other galactic races have had little faith we would succeed because it means we have to be subject to the entire range of emotional experience. Hatred, greed, jealousy, lust, all the blech of this planet. But the hoped for result is that we come to the place where we no longer harm others and we live in peace with each other, not just because we mentally understand the karmic law, but because of love.
Because we love we
Exactly.
understand the unconditional
Yeah, you
love.
get the idea. The other galactic races are a little bit like Dr. Spock, very wise, but a little on the cool side, And we're these emotional humans. But it's to really open this quality of love. But it's also why there's just so much less than love on this planet as well.
And what is the information you're getting about the movement of that? I mean, it seems from our experience here that there is a tremendous growth of that recognition, of that understanding, of that.
Oh, we are definitely moving into a new age. And it's definitely happening. And it can't be stopped. Hilarion says that we're moving through a period that he calls the tribulation. And it was set in motion 12,000 years ago, during the destruction of Atlantis, when it was seen that humanity was not going to reach the basic goal of development within the amount of time that we have. And we only have so much time because the Earth herself is a conscious being. And she is ready now to go into her next phase of evolution. But if she were to do that now, many people would find those higher frequency energies extremely uncomfortable, or they would use them in very negative and destructive ways. So it has to be this period of trial and tribulation to kind of separate the sheep from the goats, so to speak. So it's not a punishment in more of a fundamentalist Christian sense, but more of a final encouragement to people to change. The analogy that I come up with on my own is that we're moving into this new birth. And it's going to happen, and there's no way that it can be stopped. Now, on the way to that birth, we're going to go through some labor pain. Now, whether it's a 2-hour labor or a 24-hour labor, or born cesarean, or with the cord around the neck 3 times, that's up to us. That's our choice. But the birth is going to happen, and we're moving towards it. And it's different in different parts of the world. Hilarion has a book called The Nations, where he tells the personal karma and lesson and possible destiny of 25 different countries in the world, which is quite interesting because every country has lost her something, some quality she once had. The only country in there which has not lost some positive quality of herself is Tibet. Tibet has lost her body, but that's all, her physical body. She hasn't lost her greatness, her compassion, her majesty, her perceptions, and so on.
Wow, that's interesting, because she certainly has lost a lot.
Well, yeah, but she's kept the quality of her being is totally there.
And so it's interesting that in light of saying that, because what you're having is that, and we were talking about this earlier in another context, is that value, that healing of the heart, that energy that they're putting out, to a large extent, as a group whole, is not really recognized for its value. Right.
But many Tibetans have said that they felt like one of the reasons that what happened to them with the takeover of the Chinese, was so that they would bring the Dharma out into the world, instead of just keeping it for themselves. But they have that quality of soul that can look at even seemingly horrific things and see like a higher plan working out behind it.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting. The Dalai Lama was in Santa Barbara yesterday talking about those very kinds of things.
Yeah.
Talking about, almost that the meltdown was happening to bring us to what's really important.
Right.
That we were having this meltdown that with around money and things like that.
Yeah, well, I speak quite a bit about that, and I predicted that coming. The planet Pluto stays in the same sign for a long time, like 16 years. So it's really where the generational death rebirth is going on. Since 1995, it was in the sign of Sagittarius, a sign of philosophy, religion, belief system, which on the one hand is like forcing people to go much deeper into a search for meaning, giving rise to the kind of information that you've been providing on your show here and the New Age bookstores and everything, looking for new meaning outside of people's traditional belief systems. But it's also forced people to go into more intense, perhaps fundamentalist versions of their traditional belief systems. The shadow side of Sagittarius is fanaticism. We've seen lots of that since 1995. When Pluto just dipped into Sagittarius for 1 month was in April of 1995, when the federal building was blown up in Oklahoma City. So there's positive and negative with these things. But in January of 2008, it went into Capricorn, an earth sign. And, Hilarion, he really sets the theme of what a sign signifies when he gives the lesson for having the sun in that sign. Of course, in my lectures, I always say, now, if anyone here is a Capricorn, you're clearly one of the evolved ones. But he says someone who is Capricorn is someone who has in previous lives accomplished a lot in material terms and helped other people in material ways. And it gives them a lot of ambition in this life to make something of themselves in the eyes of the world. It also gives them a lot of self-reliance, the ability to rely on themselves. But that is where they will tend to put their faith. It's harder than for the average person, for a Capricorn, to really surrender and be vulnerable to what they cannot touch. And although difficult, it's not impossible. And the Capricorn who succeeds in opening that Saturnian ring past not a belief accomplishes more than what other souls have to contend with. And a lot of spiritual teachers are actually Capricorns. But I wrote in my book that Pluto going into Capricorn is likely to sort of pull the rug out from under any tendency being overly identified with material, financial reality for your security and your identity. And it's likely to create, some havoc with the world economy.
And lo and behold.
Yeah, I wrote that years ago.
What we'll do is show the second video and come back and talk about, we were talking about earlier in one of the breaks about, how everything seems to be coming into a harmony, is that we're not so much male and female, and not so much this or that, or we're not so much, one opposing sign or another. We're coming into a real experience of that we're all of it.
Oneness.
Yeah, the oneness. Okay, so maybe what we'll do is show this beautiful flute video, David Young, All My Heart it's called. It's just a beautiful piece, and we'll come back, we'll have another piece of art, and we'll get some more, insights from Steffan, and it'll be, a beautiful opportunity. So David Young, All My Heart, enjoy. Hi everybody, welcome back. So that was a beautiful video from David Young, amazing flute player, all my heart. Thanks David for sending it. And the incredible piece you're seeing is from Susan Prout from Kansas City, Missouri, another incredible collaborator in the Bridging Heaven and Earth Healing Art Project. It's actually, the name of it is Bridging Heaven and Earth. It's colored paper on colored pencil on watercolor paper. You know, again, anybody who feels moved by any of these pieces or any of the guests or any of the art or any of what we've been doing or saying or bridging, or please join us in the art project. It really is energetically a healing, an acupuncture for the planet. Anybody is welcome, and it's infinite and inclusive, and everyone's energy can add to the healing and add to the acupuncture. So welcome back.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we were talking earlier about this is a time of almost of a coming together, of almost a unity. Why don't you talk a little bit about how we can almost come from a seeming duality into less of a duality and less of a recognition of, in essence, differences?
Well, I mean, all the religions point towards a oneness. You know, that there's a place beyond duality. And yet we do live in apparent duality. And so the trick is to recognize and honor the differences, but also be able to go beyond that duality. And I was earlier telling you about this, what they call the procession of the aeons. And it refers to the aeon of Isis, the aeon of Osiris, and the aeon of Horus. The aeon of Isis was the matriarchal age. And that's where we discovered divinity within the divine feminine, within the earth, and the fertility in the earth, and the giving to life and birth. And that's where we discovered the sacred. And in that time, we were much more attuned to the earth and to nature. And we were much more psychic and intuitive and had a much greater group tribal consciousness. But in that time period, we were not yet completely autonomous, independent individuals with total, complete, independent free will. Because maybe 50% of our identity was our group consciousness and our tribal identity. And for the ultimate destiny of human evolution, it's necessary for us to become very individual beings. And to facilitate that, we moved into the aeon of Osiris. And that was where we started to worship solar gods that fertilize the earth. And with that coincided the development of the analyzing, discriminating, discursive intellect. Now that was obviously accomplished with a lot of great tragic sacrifice of a lot of that feminine attunement and psychic awareness and capacity for group consciousness. And obviously what we need now is a rebalancing, a re-honoring of the divine feminine. But the cutting edge of divinity in the new age will not just be a return to the feminine or an appreciation of the masculine. It'll be the aeon of Horus, which is where we discover divinity within the child. And that's where we become divine gods and goddesses.
You mean develop that childlike innocence and that?
Yes, and just really become divine. You know, where all of us can say what Jesus said, I and the Father are one. You know, and he didn't say that for us to just bow down to him because he was able to accomplish that. It's because we're all meant to go there and become Christed beings. You know, the Christ being the love, the child of the divine. There's an interesting teaching in Kabbalah about the purpose of existence that I find really useful. In Kabbalah, they talk about God the transcendent and God the immanent. God the transcendent transcends any existing thing, any concept, any idea, any image, it's beyond that. But when God was God the transcendent, God was God, but God had no way of knowing God was God. And so the purpose of existence is for God to become known to itself. And God allowed a portion of itself to enter into the appearance of limitation. And this is God the immanent, God in manifestation. And our purpose is to evolve back to total unity with the divine, and that's where the knower and the known become one. And that's where the real unity is, but it's also for this whole divine purpose of the divine becoming even more conscious of its divinity.
And if somebody said, yeah, that seems like a really good idea, a really good, I'd like that. That seems like it would be fulfilling. I mean, are there any tools, are there any techniques, or anything that you've learned over the years with all your, different ways of approaching that would be of value for people?
I always say that the different paths are like different flavors of ice cream. There's no way to prove vanilla is better than chocolate. If you like chocolate better than vanilla, myself, I like Neapolitan. But I practice Vipassana meditation as taught by the teacher's name S.N. Goenka, where you do these 10-day retreats and meditate 9 days in silence. And it's just, and there's no visualization and no mantra. There's nothing culturally created. It's breath and sensation. And I can say I've actually had the experience of my body being dissolved into just light. Into that through this technique of meditation. So I'm a big fan of doing that kind of intensive meditation practice. I've also previously had experiences with different plant medicines, and I tend to be appreciative of the medicine of ayahuasca, but I think meditation is the real evolutionary next big step for humanity.
Well, that you can carry with you as one. It's
right,
a value.
Yeah.
You don't need a pill, you don't need a...
Right. It's just...
carry that with you.
Yeah, my first retreat, I had an experience on the 6th day, unlike I'd ever experienced without being on a major psychedelic drug. And when I came back to rational consciousness, my first thought was, this is the real thing.
Right.
Because no part of me could say it's only a drug.
Right.
Although I also believe I may not have had that experience on the 6th day of my very first meditation retreat if I had not already done a little psychedelic exploration previously.
It all fit together.
No regrets.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, whether it's a drug or a dream or, it all becomes one.
Whatever works.
Yeah, and whatever, everything you're having is changing your experience and giving you experience.
My bottom line philosophy in life is everything is good for the people it's good for until it's no longer good for them. And it's all relative. There's certain things that are always good for everybody. Certain things are never good for anybody. And there's a lot of gray area in between where it's like relative. But I use that to keep my own Virgo planets from getting too critical.
Interesting. Probably the area that's gray is very large, and the areas that aren't are either non-existent or very small. I mean, because, almost everything you could say is always right or always wrong. Well, okay, give me one of each end, and I'll see if I agree with them at all.
Giving love is always good, and acting out of fear. And
oh, you would, in those broad sense. Yeah, I thought it was like human activity, because you could be acting out of love and it could look like everybody else.
Right, it's all relative. Right, even that may seem like something bad, but it could be serving something. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, it's like Buddha said, that the thing that's really is the intention.
Right. Yeah, I used to tell the story that, two people walk, a person who needs to help across the street. One person is actually helping him across the street. The other person wants to get him across and get him into an alley and rob him. Right. So it looks the same in the middle of the street.
Yeah, Goenka says the same thing, that a robber can stab a knife into someone's stomach, to rob them. And a surgeon can try to do surgery on someone who has a horrible ulcer and he dies on the operating table. It's the same act, the same result,
Right,
but the
it's a
intention
completely
is totally different.
Yeah, vibrationally. That's,
yeah.
So I mean, what could
So
look
that's the
like
relative.
something. That's
Yeah,
why when
sure.
you said that, it
sure.
triggered that that kind of metaphor in my head.
Yeah.
So your feeling is that whatever brings people into more of an experience of love rather than fear at this particular time in their evolution. Hallelujah.
Yeah, I mean, that's all there is. All positive emotions come from love, and all negative emotions come from fear. And all we really have to ask ourselves in any given moment is, am I coming from love or fear? Yeah.
Actually, it's interesting because we used to talk that part of the process was to learn a more subtle way of determining the difference. We were talking about that earlier. You were talking about the discernment part. So why don't you talk a little about, developing that tool in you that knows harmony rather than disharmony, knows, because there's so many concepts about things.
Well, that's why meditation is so useful, because when you have a quieter mind, you're less likely to get caught up in the rationalizations that we all get into, that kind of rationalize our fears and talk ourselves into it, and stuff. And it's nice to be able to step back from all that, to be in the world but not of it.
Yeah, that would be a good plan for people. And it's interesting because it is really a tricky experiment here. To be this infinite being, this God, and to feel separate, and to think you're separate, and to think you brought up in a certain country, in a certain religion, and you're all these things, and to come into that vastness and still maintain and remember what's on your driver's license and all these things, and how to get home.
Right.
It's tricky.
Well, I really liked what Terence McKenna once said about ego. He says, ego is necessary. Ego is what allows a group of people who are eating dinner together at the dinner table to know which mouth to put the food in.
Right.
Without ego, it could be messy,
Right.
So there's a
or it's very exciting.
You're right.
Right. So in 30 seconds, what do you want the world to really, feel energetically from you this evening, and for ad infinitum?
I just hope we can all choose love and not fear, and trust, and that, as I say it, if I didn't have a strong spiritual faith of my own, that there is a God or a higher reality behind life and a reason why things happen, no matter how seemingly painful or difficult, that it's really there to help us to grow or learn or balance past karma that we all have. It'd be difficult to do the work I do. It would be too depressing.
Really? All right, so if you want any information about Steffan, his books, his healings, his workshops, his sessions, or anything about the art project, about the music, about anything we've talked about, Alan, 805-687-2053, 805-687-2053. Good night, we love you, God bless you.